Danielle, I'll start with you, if that's okay. Your thoughts on what is going on here. Do you see this as a kind of infringement of what France stands for, or do you think the police need to be protected?
I think the police needs to be protected, but the way the government is going with this is really problematic for the people and for the police. We are living we've been living for the past 3 years an increase in authoritarian measure from the government, and just to recall, the biggest mass movement in France happening 2 years ago with the Yellow Vest movement had already seen excessive use of force by the police because of the political orders that were given to the police. So we have a government who only use force to quash opposition. And at that time, there was already photojournalists and journalists covering those mobilizations that were targeted by the police. So what is going on is, with this law, as you pointed, it's very important to point that it's not just Article 24 that is problematic. There are several articles in this law, in this bill, that are really problematic, and that will mean a drastic regression on human rights and citizen rights in France, not just by the press, but by the citizens. And it's a fundamental democratic right to be able to hold police officer, but also the minister who gives order accountable from what they're doing. And I think that's why so many people are so upset, because we've already experienced firsthand the brutal repression of the Macron government over the past years, and we fear that, and many fear that it will only get worse.
Indeed, Danielle, and to back up what you're saying, of course, the United Nations has spoken out about the policing of the Yellow Vest protests and the overuse of force by French police officers during those weeks of unrest on the French streets. Danielle, you said that you believe the police should be protected. Do you think the journalists should be protected too? The journalists should have their right to work, their right to film whatever they want, the right to film and show police misconduct, if indeed that is happening?
I think it's fundamental in a democracy. If we believe ourselves to live in a democratic, with a democratic society with the rule of law, there needs to be protections. And let me just add about the police officer that are on duty. And I feel everybody will agree here in France, in the National Assembly, that they need to be protected, and they are. There are already laws that condemn people who harass online police officer, and it's even an added reason to sanction them. So it's not like they are not protected. They are. There's already, we have one of the toughest legislation in that matter. So first of all, there's already a legislation that protects the police. And I think what is problematic with the way the government is using it, the government is actually using police officer against the people. You had a high-ranking police officer here in Paris who actually said to a demonstrator during the Yellow Vest movement, we are not on the same side. And so you have a government which is politicizing police in order to suppress protest. And also, I want to just to add that I agree with my colleague about the fact that this bill as a whole is problematic, because what is being said is they want to build a security continuum, which means to us is just a continuity of repressive law, where they want to develop private security. They want to blur the difference between public service and private service. And as I said, there's the matter of drone, which was already sanctioned actually by our High Court, that said that the government used drones during demonstration. That was unlawful. So they put up this bill in order to develop this mass surveillance state. This is basically what they've been saying, and they will add more measures in the next bill that they're working on, which is called about against separatism. So I think there's a coherence with the previous measures that have been done by the governments, and what we know is that it's always targeting citizen. It has already targeted journalists, and it's also a way to prevent the movement against police brutality, because and that's my last point on that subject, because over the past years, it's thanks to people actually filming police officers on duty that use excessive force against citizens that the debate about police brutality has been put forward in France. That's the only reason why, because we had those videos that were put into the internet, that the government started and was forced to acknowledge what was happening. And I think it shows how useful it is, and that when they are malign intent, that when they are negative intent, it's already punished by the law. You talk about Magnanville, we can talk about a lot of cases where people who use it, and we showed private information about police officers, have been condemned by the justice system. So it's not like the justice system is broken for that. There are harsh punishment for unlawful behavior that already target police officers. But what is missing is holding police officers accountable for their bad action. The few ones who are acting in a very problematic manner are never held accountable for their action. And I think the government is trying to prevent those actions to be put forward and to be ask justice for that by the people who are victims of those violence.
Danielle, a local Paris police force. Natalie, let me pause you and give Danielle one final word for this half, because I know you're staying with us. Danielle, final word from you.
The problem is that the bill is giving more power to private security, and it's, as I said, it's blurring the lines between private and public sector security officer, first of all. And second of all, it has already happened. Press, journalists have been barred to cover demonstration. Just a couple of days ago, there was a demonstration in front of the nearby the National Assembly, and actual press and journalists with their press name tag were barred for covering. Some of them were sent to prison, were arrested, and there's been a lot of outcry for journalists. So it is already happened. The bill hasn't even been voted yet. It's already been happened. It is happening right now. So I could talk also. I could show the example of what has been happening when a journalist would write a paper that Emmanuel Macron disapprove of. He would give a call or be fired. We already had those instances where the executive power is actually preventing freedom of speech happening in France right now. And I'm afraid it's just going to get worse if this bill is being voted. And hopefully more and more MPs from the Macron's majority in the National Assembly will decide to vote against it. Some spoke publicly about the fact that they will not vote for it, and hopefully the mobilization against this law will make them realize.
Danielle, I need to cut you off because we're out of time. Thank you very much.